What's up, good people? What's up, good people? It's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder. I know it's Sunday night. I know it's Sunday night. Y'all been chilling all day long. I know you've been waiting. You've been waiting because you've been wanting to hear about this conversation that I'm about to have with this young lady over here. Y'all see up top there? Miss Creola. Thomas,
Hi.
we about yeah, we about to dig in, and I know the church folk they all churched out from this morning, but we about to get just a little bit more before they go to bed tonight, or they'll be able to watch it first thing in the morning. They'll be able to see this, to be able to understand what we're about to get into on this episode of the National Black Unity News newspaper, the Author Showcase, the National Black Unity News newspaper, which is for us by us. It is the premier newspaper for Black media, for the Black media, premier Black media newspaper for us by us. You will not find any other newspaper that is like this newspaper, that will bring you stories, that bring you editors, that don't talk about the regular, ordinary, mainstream topics. In the newspaper, you will find those topics, those things that we cover. Is not what you're going to see everywhere else or anywhere else. I promise you. Thus, that is where the the author showcase coming. You're not going to find that in any other newspaper. I promise you, you will not. So you can get your subscription to the author showcase. You can go to www.tnbun.com. You can get your subscription there. Get a year. It's four. We have four editions each year. They come out each quarter, once a quarter, so you can catch us then at four um, for editions each year under $20. You can't beat that. So and you'll have I mean, the paper's worth more, way more than that. It's just that all of the information that is packed into this newspaper is actually phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. So as a part of that, the showcase is nothing different. So we're gonna get started with this conversation, and this young lady that I have here with me tonight, I'm gonna allow her to introduce herself and tell you just a little bit about who she is, and then we're gonna talk about this book here. She done started some trouble. She done started some trouble. Like Bernie Mac said, it's gonna be trouble, trouble. Resurrecting a dying church. Hey, y'all, I didn't write the title. I did not write the title, but I'm here for it though. I am certainly here for it, and I'm ready to have this conversation because she and I talked way before then, and this is something. It's a conversation that is sorely needed, but is one that the church needs to have itself. So buckle up. That's all I'm gonna tell y'all is buckle up. So, Miss Creola, why don't you introduce yourself to the people and tell them who you are, and then we'll get into the conversation first about we'll talk about the book, but then we'll talk about solutions that you give and the principles that you deal with in the book.
Okay, sure. My name is Creola Thomas, and I've studied evangelism church growth for around going on now 17 or 18 years. I have a doctorate from Grace Theological Seminary, the satellite branch in Chicago. And I have a master's from Wheaton College, where I did a lot of my studying on church growth because I majored in evangelism church growth was my emphasis. So evangelism and church growth has always been one of my passions, and I've always sought to write to enlighten specifically, but not exclusively, the Black church about just the need to do effective evangelism outreach in church planting.
So she know what she talking about, y'all. She studied this. So she ain't just writing this book just to be
Yeah.
writing this book.
Oh
Yeah, and I
no,
love
there's a
that.
lot of research that went into this book. Years of research that went into this book. Not just researchers in churches, but research done on the street, door to door, hand to hand research. So there's a lot of research that went into helping to make this book what it is. I wanted it to be simplistic enough where a layman could look at it, and yet deep in principle enough where a theologian could identify the principles. So I hope I merged the two successfully. That was the goal.
Yeah, and I want you to talk a little bit about not only your educational background, but you also grew up in the church and with your father being
Yeah, yeah,
a pastor in the church. Can you talk
yeah,
about can you talk
yeah,
a little bit about that? The educational piece
yeah.
that you got, but the physical piece of being in the church and seeing it, growing up in it,
Oh yeah.
and knowing what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am a PK kid. I'm a pastor's kid. And actually, this particular book, my dad, when he found out that I was going to Wheaton and I was majoring in evangelism, he wanted me, or he asked me to write a book for churches like his church. So let me
Okay.
describe my dad's church to you. We were a small church, primarily family orientated. A few other families merged in, was there with us for a long time, but primarily family church. We had about at the height of our membership, we had about 150. At the low of our membership, we had about 50. It was revolving door, and we rarely took in new converts. We took in a lot of people that wanted prayer. We prayed for quite a few people, but new converts didn't come through those doors very often, and certainly not often enough. So my dad always wanted to be impactful. He wanted to be a pastor that reaches people. He wanted to understand, with his limitations, what will it take to grow a church, to at least fill this capacity. And I'm not recommending that every church be a mega church. That is not the goal of this book.
Mhm.
It's not my personal philosophy. But I am recommending or suggesting that if God gave you a facility that seats 250 people, he wants 250 people to be in a seat. So that's my goal. So he wanted me to write this book. And when he asked me to write the book, I was really focused on going to Wheaton College and looking for the deep theologian out there in their minds, and writing about Azusa Street and trying to get these big, well-known evangelists and ministers and teachers to give me their autobiography or a chance to write on them. And so when my dad asked me to write the book, I didn't really work on it then. But after he passed, about a couple of years after he passed, I started to think, you really could write that. And then I started to
Mhm.
visit other churches, big and small. And I started to, I started talking to people at the bus stop. You went to church? How long have you gone to church? And what made you leave the church? What was it that motivated you to stay at a church for 25 years and not leave? Like,
Mhm.
what did that church have that other churches may not possess? And just really digging deep into church growth, and how does that look, and how do we accomplish it?
Yeah, and I mean, and that's so important. Now, is that what got you started into writing? Was that, or had you been writing prior? Had you been writing prior to that?
Yeah, I was always I love fiction books, Nancy Drew mysteries, and just that was
Mhm.
my comfort spot at home. Whereas my
Okay.
sisters did house music and they went out, they did partying, they had that whole scenery going. Even though they went to church on Sunday faithfully, they may have been doing something else on Saturday. My comfort zone has always been a book and a pad. I
Okay.
was never really super sociable. So my family was my best friends. I didn't really have a need to branch out and make friends outside of my family because it was so large. I'm the youngest of 14. So my comfort, my safe spot, was a pad and a book. So I've been
Wow.
writing for the majority of my life. When I was 9, I won the Glendon Brooks writing contest. I don't remember the
Hmm.
poetry altogether, but I remember it said something like, Black is the color that represents me. Black is the color I'm so proud to be. And at 9, I was writing poetry and I won that contest at 9. My parents were so proud of me. It was just like, They began to see that I wasn't going to be like some of their other kids. I was going to be kind of different, and I was different. And my mother didn't tell me to get away from the past so often because she realized that that was something I was connected to and I
Mm.
felt called to do as well. So I do
Wow,
have
wow,
fiction
and I
out there.
like
I'm just
it.
going to plug that right fast since I got the time. I have a fiction novel out there called The Adventures with the Shorties, Portal to the Unknown Worlds. I have several other books out there, not just How to Resurrect a Dying Church.
Yeah, and I love that. Do you have that? Do you have that other book, the one that you just you have that with you there?
But what, How to Resurrect a Dying Church?
No, the other one,
I don't have it. Say it again.
No, I was saying that if you do, you have that kids book there with you as well. The about
I
the
didn't. No, I
okay,
didn't bring it
no
there.
problem, no problem. Nah, no problem, no problem. Because that's an excellent book, and you and I we'll talk more because, like I said, I really think that with both of these, there's dynamic, and you and I have talked this before, but there's really something that we can do with that book, going forward. Especially with the way that AI is with creating the characters, the physical characters of the kids,
Oh yeah.
bringing them to life and stuff. But I love it. I love it. And even with this book, it's a book that is, I think, appropriate for the time because you have a lot of churches, even before the pandemic, and I want you to speak about that. Even before the pandemic, there were a lot of churches that were dying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say it again. A lot of
Yes.
churches that would die and needed that. And I want to
Metamorphosis
get
set
in.
in and they don't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. But before I get into that, I want you to, if you had one word that would describe your writing style, because you have written different types of books, what would you define or call your writing style? And I call it a ministry too, because this is a ministry
Yeah, this.
in and of itself too. Everything that you do with your books and everything else, it's a ministry. What is there one word that you would pick to define your writing style?
Yeah, I think if I had to choose one word, of course, everything we do as Christians, we love the Lord, we seek to serve Him. Everything we do is ministry. I don't care if it's serving a cup of coffee to homeless, or sitting down with a group of women that have experienced trauma. All of that is ministry. Teaching before a set of students, that's ministry. So everything we do for the glory of God is ministry. My writing, I hope, is visual, and I hope it connects with the ordinary um, people too. So I hope that my writing is simplistic enough, especially when I'm writing like church books. And if it's fictional, I hope that it's visual, that visual component is there because I can see, I like to describe what I see. And I hope that visual component, I hope that's a good description of what I'm hoping to achieve in my writing overall.
Absolutely. I love it. Then what what made you want to write this book, How to Resurrect a Dying Church? What was the moment that you said, you know what? And I know you mentioned your dad, but you were like, yeah, I could. This is something that I truly believe that the church could use or the church needs. Somebody needs to hear this. When was that? What made you say, yeah, I really want to put this together and to be able to see what it can do or what God wants to do?
Well, as I told you, my father is the main motivation behind this book because he really wanted his church to grow. He knew that there was
Okay.
something that he was missing, but he was not learned. He wasn't allowed to go to Moody at the time, And so there was there were no seminaries accepting a black preacher from Belzona, Mississippi, with
Okay.
limited education. So he wanted uh, to compete with other, churches and to grow and be, fruitful and to be productive, but he didn't have the skills to do that. So the
Mhm,
main
mhm,
point of writing this book is to help pastors to understand if this is even what you're called to do. There's a lot of churches that are open, and you have to question whether or not those churches are open to be harvesting centers. or are they open to give pastors an opportunity to preach? Just because you can preach does not necessarily mean you should pastor. So there is a difference.
Mhm.
There is something that we need to like dig deep in, because your pastor didn't give you a pulpit, so now you go open up your own pulpit and you bring your own 10 members and you can preach every Sunday. And so, so to just say that he saw that there was a need that was happening in his own congregation that he could not touch. So he figured if I would get the education, I would be able to connect those dots for him. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to give this book to my dad because he passed before the book was published. But I hope that other pastors will give it a shot. And I hear a lot of you'll be surprised how many pastors will tell you, I don't have to read a church growth book, God grows the church. It's that sort of philosophy. Of course, we know that anything that's growth, that's growth. We know that because we're believers. We know that the Holy Spirit, empowers us to teach others. We know this because we're connected with the Holy Spirit, but there is a lack of wisdom that is dominating the Black church. And is that sort of philosophy or belief that's hindering the very mission that these pastors are hoping to accomplish. So I wanted to like really break down what is church growth and give some principles that they could go home and think about, meditate about, pray about, and immediately implement. It wouldn't be so hard. They would need $100,000 to implement these strategies. They're actually quite simplistic, but they're very effective if they're done right. So yeah, uh, that's my motivating factor.
And can you talk a little bit about, because what I found, and you can tell me if you found it, your father seemed to have been different from a lot of other pastors. A lot of them moved away or shied away from someone telling them about how to run a church. Your father seemed to say, "Hey, you know what? I don't have the skills, and I want someone that can give me or teach me the skills that I can use in order to be able to make my church do better." Have you found that to be in this 21st century that a lot of pastors have shied away from acknowledging, hey, yeah, I got the theological on lock, but I don't know the business aspect of the church or have the skill set to be able to maneuver in that particular space. Have you found that? Because I just think it's phenomenal that your dad saw that and he understood that he didn't have those tools that he needed.
Yeah. My dad had a fifth grade education. So he
Mhm.
understood he was like, my mother did a lot of the reading to my dad, including the Bible. I
Okay.
remember
Mhm.
just several nights when dad got ready to preach it. Where can you find it? Annie, where is that at in the Bible? And she would have to go read the whole scripture. And he had an incredible memory because he
Okay.
could remember it and recite. So that
Mhm.
my father was able to do that. But he knew that we would help him. And so he asked for help from his daughter because he knew that we were there with him. We showed up, rain, sleet, snow, sun, with heat, without, with air, without, we showed up. And so he knew that he had a very supportive family, but he wanted more. He wanted more. He was a pastor that really had a heart for the people, and he just didn't know how to reach them. I find that pastors are often intimidated by help
Mhm.
that they don't get intuitively. God is going to give it me. God is going to give that to me. If God doesn't give it to me personally, then I'm kind of hesitant to take it. I find that pastors are sometimes prideful. They have this greater than you kind of
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
philosophy. Instead of whatever I can get out of this book, even if I can't implement all strategies, I can get 4 or 5 of them. I can hit that. But they want it's what we do to the glory of God. If a kid can
Mhm.
teach me something, if I'm going to use whatever that kid teaches me to the glory of God, then praise God. And I think that some pastors just would rather not be on that level. No, I'm not going to let a woman, not a black woman. Sometimes it's sexist. Sometimes it's What is your educational background? When I start telling them, wait a minute, I've been educated, but it's not my education that's gonna give you what you need. What you really need is the wisdom from the book. And you don't have to have an education to do that, to read this. It's purposefully written on a fifth to sixth grade level because I wanted something that if my dad was around, he could read and he could implement. So I made
Wow.
sure, even when words got too complicated, I go to the thesaurus and change them because I wanted to make sure that this book was accessible to every level learner. And
Gotcha.
but getting pastors to open up and say, let me see what this book is all about has been a challenge. But I'm not giving up because I really believe that it is the revival of the Black church that's going to save the Black community. It's not going to be the
Say
money
that
that,
again. Say
I'm
that
sorry.
again. I said, say that again. Say they need to hear that. Absolutely.
It,
I love that. Yes.
yeah, it is the revival of the Black church that's going to save the Black community. It's not politicians. It's not the government. It's not money. It's not the superstars. It's not music. It is the church itself. And the Black church is rooted in so many historical blessings that we don't even know how rich the heritage is. But until
Yeah.
we can come together and be open to learn and open to new ideas, until we can understand that we can be taught and retaught again, we're just going to hurt and hinder the process. So, yeah. So, a little bit about my dad's church, and and I don't want to give all the points away, but, and I don't know if I gave this as an example in the book, but I will say it now. A lot of, pastors, a lot of ministers in parachurch organizations think that, okay, 3 new people join my church. That's church growth. And what I'm trying to help people to see and help pastors to see is to sort of shift that paradigm, because that's not church growth.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand that church growth, real church growth, or authentic church growth, is when you go out there and get someone who never knew the Lord. When you bring a sinner in, that's church growth. When new people come join your church, they could be relocating to a new area. Yes, your church is growing, not necessarily church growth. They could be mad at their pastor, or just a revolving door. That's what we get a lot of times. We get people come in and they're not satisfied with the ministry that they were doing at their other church, or they didn't feel like the pastor used them enough, or they felt like so many people. I've heard this so much I could just scream. They were jealous of me. Come on. Of what? So you leave your church because you felt like somebody else was jealous of you. And then you bring all of that baggage to the new church. And the pastor's like, yay, church growth. No, 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 no. No, what you have is another church problem. But you have another
Mm.
church situation that is going to cause problems in your church if you don't get to the root of it. Church growth, or authentic church growth is when you go out there, you meet a sinner on the streets, and you bring them in, or when you clean up abuse or hurt, because some people have church hurt before they get church growth. So church hurt can eventually be church growth. So you clean up the mess that others have done to these wounded warriors, and you bring them in and you dust them off and you show them, the love of Christ through ministry and through love. That can eventually be church growth. But just people coming and joining your church from one church to the next, that's not necessarily church growth. So to get them to understand what they should be shooting for is a challenge within itself. You want to go out there and get the people that never, ever, we're dealing with an unchurched generation that never even been to church. They don't know what a deacon board is. That's like a foreign language to them. They certainly don't understand church music. It's like something they just don't want to hear. It's a lot of racket, is a lot of noise. So to get people like that in your doors so that you can eventually present the gospel to them, that person will be church growth. And that's what I'm trying to get pastors to see more often than not, that there's a dying world out there that really needs you. You don't have to fight for members in other churches. If only I was big enough. If only my choir sang good. If only I had more men. I know one particular person that goes from church to church looking for a husband. I understand the
Mm.
need because we all have those needs. The churches that you're joining, you're not adding anything to that church but another problem. Because as soon as that relationship dissolve or break up, you're going to be looking for the next. God is going to give you another word to go to another church so that you can get hurt all over again. The church hurt has to be healed before church growth can even take place. But authentic church growth is getting those out there that never knew the Lord to come through your doors and accept Christ for the first time. That's what we need desperately in our communities.
But also to add to what you're saying, to me that's a definitely an aspect of church growth. But also when I think of church growth, also think of the congregation that's there. That congregation that's there, that's in the church, should not be stagnant. They should be growing as well as an individual. Their relationship with Christ, their relationship with God, that should be growing. And as a result of that, what I believe happens is that person that's a member of the church, they then go out and they disciple to those people that you were just talking about. Yeah, it's almost like the woman that was at the well, and Jesus told her about herself. She said, "Come see a man that told me about me." And myself, and that's what when we're a church member, we go back to actually tell those people that we see. They be like, "Well, whoa, what happened to you, dude? You're not acting like you acting all brand new." Yeah, I am brand new. Come, let me show you why I am brand new and why I'm living a different way, why I'm thinking a different way. It has to do with this church that I go to as well. To me, I think that's church growth as well, because
Yeah,
we as the congregation have an obligation to go out and do that too, to be able to bring others in too as well.
absolutely, Doctor. In fact, Doctor Leroy, look, it's sheep beget sheep. So people
Mhm.
looking for the pastor to grow the church, and it's really the people in the church that grow the church. So
Correct.
let me give you my first 2 points in the book to show you how accurate and on point you are with that. The first point of church growth is write the vision. People will
Mhm.
follow individuals with a vision. If you don't have a vision for your church, for the congregation, you could be planted in the wrong place, which is why you're not reaping a harvest. Now, the second church growth principle I'll give you is grow the people in the church first. You want church growth, but the people in your church is not growing. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
the second point. So yes, the emphasis on stop all trying to get a big choir and hiring the best musician and paying them $500 a Sunday to come and play your choir happy so your choir can reach people. Grow the choir first. When you grow people
Mm.
to the point where they begin to love the Lord more than they love their lives themselves, that person is going to be a light for others to see. And that light is going to start attracting first within their families and then abroad. So, yes, the second principle of church growth is to grow the people in your church first. Have an emphasis on Bible study, have an emphasis on small groups. Look and see what type of small group you should have. If you have 90% of your church members are single parents, and you already know what sort of small group you should have that really meets the needs of those single moms and dads. Because now I'm finding that there's a lot of single dads in the church too. So you want to find a group that meets those needs so those people that are in that predicament can grow. And when they start to grow, uh, the church is growing. That's a part of church growth. But I'm talking about organic getting people in. Just because you get people
Mhm.
to join and
Correct.
come outside and they already love the Lord, and that's their testimony already. They left Bob's church to join your church. I don't count that as church growth. But when you start, if you could take that wounded soldier and you can build him or her up, and you can clean him or her up so that they can be ready to reach out, then that can eventually become church growth. But the key to church growth is to grow the members in your church first. And I wish my father would have read this book, because often that was the major problem in our church, is that we didn't have it
Okay.
together. We
Yeah.
were arguing with each other and with the new members. The choir didn't like this way this person sang that song. So they wanted to get a lead to that song. I mean, we didn't have it. We love the Lord. I'm not gonna say we didn't. And there God was there. I believe he visited us from time to time, but there were things that were going on intrinsically inside the church that could have been a hindrance if people would have came. You know,
Yeah.
people were fighting each other in the choir and arguing at each other. And and
Can
and we didn't, because we didn't realize that even though we were all family, and if we were at a majority of family members, and even those who were outside of our family, they were still
hmm
very much like them because they had been with us for many years. And even though it was like a family atmosphere, we all had separate needs. I had needs as a single grown up in the church and was overworking myself because I really didn't know how to communicate with the opposite sex. Like, of course, I like boys, of course, but I didn't know if they really liked me, so I just forgot it. It just became something of the past. I needed some ministry. I needed some coming
mm,
together in groups and talking that out. Therapeutic biblical ministry. My sisters had children, and some of them were divorcees. They needed healing and they needed ministry, but they plowed themselves in the church, which was a good thing. And they covered up everything so everything could look good. So we can look like the perfect family. And all the hurt was pushed back, and they couldn't go forward because they weren't. And sometimes pastor kids are neglected because pastors will pray for other people, not always realizing that their kids need that
ooh,
same, prayer. Like,
mm,
they don't. I can specifically remember my pastor praying, my father praying for people to get married, but I never remember him coming to me and saying, "Free, let me pray for you." But I just don't remember it. And he probably did in his quiet time because he was a man of prayer. But there's a lot of issues that pastor kids are struggling with, and pastors don't realize it. Their kids are getting high, their kids are doing a lot of stuff, but they don't want to say that. They just let them keep coming to church, come on to church, and instead of stopping and dealing with that situation. So, and I have an adolescent, so I know an adopted daughter, so I know what I'm talking about. To the best of us, it happens.
I mean, the thing is, I think a lot of pastors don't realize or recognize what you just said. One of the key things that just they get pulled 50 different ways, and and they are, they are committed to the ministry, but in being committed to the ministry, they got to understand that the first ministry is your family. And if you're not
Exactly.
attending to the needs of your family, how can you attend to the needs of your congregation? Or I'll say you shouldn't allow the needs of your congregation to overshadow the needs of your family. Yeah, your church is your
Yeah.
extended family, but you've got to make sure that your family is good, that they're okay. And I know pastors who have and one of my good friends, Donald Morton, he talked about that because he was a pastor, and he was saying he was so passionate about the ministry, his ministry, he neglected his wife. It became a thing where his wife was like, dude, I'm
Mhm.
getting I'm getting what's left over from
Yeah.
you being so locked in to what you're doing that you're ignoring me. And it became
Mhm.
and it became that became an issue. So the pastors do have to understand that part of what you do and part of your church flourishing, it means that you have to be attentive to the needs of your family too. And that
Yeah.
means sometimes the congregation, you can't you have to say no, because they'll pull you. I know, they'll pull they'll disregard the first family. It's like, I need my I need my pastor right now. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to being cognizant of that very thing. And pastors, you can't, yes, you want your church to be, to be filled. You want to make sure that you tend to their needs and everything like that. But at the same time, if it comes at the neglect of your family, you've got some soul searching to do to make sure, hey, I can't ignore my family. Like you were just saying, I got to make sure that my daughter's okay.
Mhm.
I've got to make sure that my son is okay. That, make sure that their needs are being attended to as well. It's the only way that
Exactly.
the church is going to flourish. You can't have your house and your physical house in chaos, but your church house is in order. You know what I'm saying? Or try to put on this facade as if it is that your physical family is good when they're really not, and you're hiding all of those things because eventually that's going to spill over. I promise you, it'll
Yeah,
spill
yeah.
over.
And you just make them they just show up at church and everybody think it's okay. Now, I do
Right.
think that some children will go the wrong way. And I don't
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
I don't care if you're a pastor or deacon,
Right.
choir member. There'll be some kids that will fall prey to Satan's lie. But we, as people of God, we have to continue to speak the truth. We have to say the truth
Yes.
even if they don't want to hear it. And like I told my daughter, we get up and go to church. I don't, and I have some issues when it comes to that, but this is not really about that when it comes to parenting. But I don't think we
Hmm.
ever give up on our kids. I don't care what they say they are or what they say they're going. I think we have to speak the truth to them, and sometimes they'll dislike you for that. And
Yeah.
sometimes they'll want to get away from you because they've gotten so self-educated, they've educated themselves out of the word of God. But we have to
Mm.
be people that will stand firm. There's some things I had to tell my daughter that I just simply do not believe in. If she gets
Hmm.
older and chooses to go that route, she'll realize or understand that her mother told her the truth. It's sin. I don't
Hmm.
care how many people are proving it, or what, it's sin. And maybe you agree with it or disagree with it, but it's sin. But there will be kids, our kids will make decisions. And we can't fault the pastor, first lady, deacon, or anyone else for some bad decisions that our kids will do on their, willingly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that we still have to be that voice of reason, that voice of truth, and we can't ever let them win, kind of, because that would be giving in to the devil. We still have to bring them to church and be out open and honest. I'm open and honest about my daughter and her struggles. You pray
Hmm.
for her, but she's gonna be in church,
Right.
you know.
So tell me this. I want you to talk a little bit about the book. What is tell us a little bit about what the book is about, and what you want the reader to come away with after they've read the book. Those two things, if you can.
Okay, the book is about simply principles to grow in your church, how to grow your church. And I'll give you a few principles, but then you may not buy the book if I give them all to you. So I
No,
won't give
no,
them.
we definitely don't want you to give all the principles. Absolutely not.
Okay,
Absolutely not.
okay, because
Absolutely
it
not.
gets better. I'll just say, and the book is written through case studies. And because I visited so many different churches in writing this book, I went to small churches. I sat in the pews. I asked, the pastors, can I interview for a few minutes? I'm just writing a book about church growth. Very few
Mm.
pastors said no. Even in the
Okay.
bigger
Okay.
churches, they were like, can you get with my secretary? And I was able to get some really good interviews from really big pastors. And as
Oh,
long as I
awesome.
didn't put their name out there, like if they said something that I found or disagree with, as long as it didn't become combative, but they let me anonymously interview quite a few pastors, especially in
Okay.
Chicago. And I
Oh,
and I
good.
interviewed ex members of churches, including ex members of my dad's church, to understand why did you really leave the church. So I went
Right.
back and I found them and I interviewed them. I would just, no matter where I was at, do you go to church? And I want to talk to you about your church. And I just started, just having that conversation, that dialogue with people. And some people will say to me, I ain't never going back to church. That was a conversation I had too with quite a few people. So the book is written is a case study through a case study. The book, there's a lot of facts in the book, truth in the book. Like even though I'm changing the names, some of those stories are spot on. With the experiences
Okay.
that happened in this book. So the first thing about this book is that, and then I also wanted to make sure that you had opportunities in this book to like write your own thoughts. Like in certain places, you can journal what you feel and what you think. In certain places,
Okay.
not every chapter, but the first chapter, of course, deals with why I wrote the book, which I talk about that extensively a little bit more. And then I wrote the first principle, number one, is to have a vision for your church. and to have that vision publicly known. So, because when a person comes join the church, you don't want them to join because they like the way you preach. You don't want them to join because they, like the members of the church. They're so friendly, they're so nice. Those are all good and excellent things. I'm not taking away from that at all. But you actually want people to join your church that believes in your ministry, that's following your
Mm-hmm.
vision. So even if you fall short, they're not there for you, they're there for the vision. So let's say you're a pastor and your vision is to reach homeless people in downtown Chicago. Why are you planted in Wheaton? So when you write the vision should guide your every move, and you
Mm-hmm.
get the vision from God. So some pastors need to go back and say, why am I on the west side of Chicago? What am I giving or called to give to the west side of Chicago? What is the
Mm-hmm.
vision that I see for the west side of Chicago? If you can't write the vision so plain that people can see it and do it, then you need to rewrite the vision. So I think that every church should have a vision that's posted. And when members come join your church, let them know what the vision is to see if they want to join that vision. If they want, because it's more than just joining a church. It's joining the
Right.
philosophy behind the church, why God called that church to be a church, number one. And then the second thing, of course, we talked about this, is to grow the people in the church. Look at your congregation. Have your congregation take a look at itself and look at where your congregation is falling short. If you have a church and you notice that a whole lot of these girls are coming up pregnant before the age
Hmm.
of 21, and even if they're, you get married at 21, but I'm just, what I'm saying, and it's fornication. Let's just put it out there. And you notice that this is running rapid through your church. Stop and deal with it. Grow the people in the church first. Tell them the truth, even if they don't want to accept it. Because you don't want the blood to be required on your hand. And if you see a lot of women, you're at an older church, and a lot of women and men are lonely. Stop right there and deal with that issue. Why are they not
Mm-hmm.
motivated to come on a Wednesday? Or why they're not happy to be in church? It's just ritualistic, something that they do every Sunday, and that's what they're gonna do. But why they're not excited to get up and go to church? Praise God! I'm gonna hear from God, because they don't have anything there that's feeding them, feeding your inner man. So grow the people in your church first. Look at what your church needs. Look at the sin and look at the good stuff, the good things your church is doing. You got a lot of youth in your church. That's a good place to start. The youth is the lifeline of the church, because we're getting older.
Say that again. I don't. Wait a minute. 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 Don't just skate by that. Say that again, because a lot of churches have died because they don't understand that phrase that you just said right there. I need you to repeat that again for these pastors to understand that and how important that is for them.
The youth is the lifeline of your church. If you don't have emphasis on youth, you are already falling short. And
Mm,
and that means emphasis on teaching them, emphasis on training them, emphasis on getting them together as a group and going out and eating together. Youth banquets, youth uh, uh, movie night. Bring the movie in the church. All the youth come. We're going to watch this. We're going to discuss it. Get your young people together and pour in their lives, because they're the lifeline of your church. And youth, sheep got sheep when you bring their friends in. I remember we did this, even though we had a small church, where if you brought the most people to church that Sunday, you won an award or something. And that was a good strategy. I wish we could have done more of that, but that was a good strategy. If you have youth that are into the arts, open up an arts ministry, produce plays, sow in the lives of the young people that go to your church, and they will produce a harvest for you.
yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. That is so, so, so true. If you find a church that is majority of older people, yeah, that church is not going to has doesn't have the ability to sustain itself because it has nothing to pull from. I promise you. And I don't know if you looked at the data or anything like that, but the churches that were impacted or mostly impacted by the pandemic, if they were older churches or if they were churches that had a younger congregation, because I promise you, most of the ones that had the younger congregations had that sustainability with them.
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers or not or anything with that, but I promise you, the ones that are still around and that are flourishing and doing well, look at their, like you said, look at their young adult um,
Yeah.
congregation, the aspect of the young adult congregation. So um,
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I know the pandemic devastated most churches, and some of them had to close their doors. And yes, you don't even have to look at the numbers. If a church is
yeah,
flourishing with younger people, they're going to grow. That church is
yeah,
a growing church. If it's an overflow of young people, now though, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this too, though, but like even in my church, and this is one
mhm,
thing I'm talking to a church about. There's a gaping hole of young people, and my daughter
yeah,
sometimes is the only young girl in the church.
really,
And
hmm and that's the thing.
yeah, but
I
there's some
I
stuff
hope
that's
that
really coming against the
I
church.
hope that
Mhm.
no,
I'm
I really
sorry.
hope that pastors will begin. I really hope that pastors will begin to understand, and I call it, and it's something that I do with the pastors that I work with. It's called a new approach to sin, and it's not SIN, it's CIN, which it's an acronym for commitment to impacting the needs of the community, and the community is your congregation. The
Hmm.
the the congregation is the community that you are a part of. Like you talked about, what am I doing here on the west side of Chicago? What are the needs of the west side of Chicago from a young
Hmm.
adult standpoint? And how
Hmm.
can my church be an aid in assisting the young adults that need that? That's what will fuel and feed the church. That's what will give you the ability to be able to address their needs, and they'll have a place to be able to come and to be able to go to and say, you know what, yeah, I know this church that's here, and I'm going to begin to go there because they're feeding what it is, like you said, that they're feeding what it is that I know that I need, those things that are
Hmm.
addressing the issues that directly impact me. And until we seem to be able to do that and be right where you are, you don't aspire to be like any other church or be you. Your
Yeah.
church should be what it is, your church, and start right there where you are. Look at the families in the community. Look at the government that should be a part of the community. Look at the educational system that's in the community. Look at the businesses that are in the community and how you as the church need to be connected to all of those. That will give you what you need as far as directing those needs and stuff like that. I truly believe that. So really quickly, what do you want the reader to come away with after they read the book? After they read that last page, that last word, what do you want them to come away with from how to resurrect the dying church? What you want them to be able to move and take action on?
Well, at the very there is a and I do an example in the book, but I would love for every church to come away with just simple steps of how to map out their community, and I go over that, how to go to
Mm,
your
mm,
community, north, south, east, and west, how to look for pivot points of places that you need to pray for or pray against, how to set up, and it's all outlined in the book, how to look at and set up and arrange Bible studies that will meet the need of your church. Small, I mean, it start small and then grow from there, and just how to develop a plan for how you're going to grow the church. Some churches need to relocate. You want to
mm,
minister to a population of people that's just not where your church is at.
yeah.
Some churches need to bilocate. I know God has called me to this population of people, but I'm here and I'm flourishing in this area. So, God, how are you moving this area of people to affect that area of people? But it really based on, like writing a good church plan, getting the few people that's on your side. I always tell people, my pastors say this too, your church is as big as your Bible class. That's how, if you only got 12 people coming to Bible class, you got 12 members, devoted members. And we have a good pastor. I'm blessed to have one of the best pastors. So, you know, keep fighting through the effects of the pandemic and get these people away from bedside Baptist and tell them to come back to come back to the flock because we miss you. And even if it means the flock going back to them and doing home stuff, so that's what I would love for them to kind of get when they, leave the book. I have a plan. Now, everyone, I guess I'm going to give you another principle. This is one thing I strongly believe, because I don't believe that the government should be taking care of the church. I think every church needs to have a business and a business plan, a way to generate income within the communities that they're called to. And that they need to, okay, if you're in a community and there's lots of single mothers with children, what about a daycare center? How would that look? What would it cost to do that? Then you'll know what to pray for. But I think church needs an independent entity that is separate from the church, that is producing revenue for the church, so that we can start empowering the people in the church and not waiting for the outside to empower the people in the church. So
I love that.
Just kind of looking at your whole church philosophy and letting this book like guide you through some new and different things. Now, granted, everything may not be what you're capable or able to do, but at least you're capable of giving it a start. If you got lots of people in your churches that need rides, doesn't take a lot to start your own Uber. Invest in 2 cars and call us for a lift. It's just thinking outside the box. 2 can go to 3, 3 can go to 4. And now you're not just hiring the people in your church, but you're hiring people from the community. And when you get in people's pockets, you have a roadmap to that person's heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, when I say the title, "How to Resurrect a Dying Church," what does that mean to you?
It's a church that's not dead. And I had to, one sister, we went back and forth on this. It's a church that actually rigor mortis has sat in and they don't realize it. So let me give you some characteristics of a dying church. You only take in 4 members a year, if that. You got the same people you've seen for 25, 30 years. Even the kids that went off to college, you don't see them anymore. Something is happening. Let's look at if the symptoms are there, then there's a sickness somewhere. Because if you have symptoms, that lets the body know that something is sick. Another characteristic of a church that's not prospering, you don't have any youth. All your members are 55 and older. Not that that's old. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you don't have a young congregation.
Watch it. I
Well,
just turned the double nickel. Watch it.
Okay. But when
No,
you
no, no.
see, you must be
You,
turning 55 soon. Dr. Leroy. You're already 55. You're probably older. Okay.
no. I just turned. No, I just literally in January. I just turned 55 in January.
Okay, well, you cool. I mean, don't worry about it. But I'm just saying, everybody's young as they feel. But what I'm saying, Dr. Leroy, is that you want people to have an emphasis on young people.
Yeah.
So if your church don't have an emphasis on young people, your church is going to die out with the youngest member there. When that 55 get 90 or however long he or she lives, and that's like the youth is the breath, line of your church. So that's another characteristic. And then there's just things to look at, church not growing, members, conflict that is always increasingly, rearing up in the church. Do you need to release and restrict? Release mean there are people in your church you need to release to ministry and trust them to do some stuff. And then there are people in your church you need to restrict because they're privileged and they've been doing the same thing for so long that they're not open
Mm,
to let other people come in. And these are people you need to
mm,
get a handle on because they will stomp out your church. I do give this as an example in my book, Being Transformed. There was this lady who saw this other younger minister come in, and it's just something about this younger minister that the lady didn't like. And she was like, I'm going to stay on this minister's neck as much as I possibly can. I'm going to beat that
mm.
pride out of her. I'm going to hold this minister down as much as I possibly can. But one thing you don't understand, when you're holding somebody down, you're down with them. The
Yep,
thing is to let
absolutely.
people get up and grow. Because when they grow and they're under you or working with you, you grow. And we don't know how to release and restrict in the Black church. We think if I take that title away from them, they won't be paying tithe. Well, so be it. Because there's younger people that need to be mentored, and we got to start ushering in the mentors. Why did the Bible tell us that, older people, I can't think of I hate to mess up scriptures, but there is a scripture that talks about mentoring young people,
Mm,
and taking them under your wing and giving them the right to fly. If that's not happening in your church, that's a symptom of something else. If you've had the same choir member, director, same choir director for 15 years, something is wrong. That person
mm,
should be mentoring somebody else to come take their place and should be moving up higher in the ministry wherever God is branching them to. Maybe they'll be teachers of this or leaders in a different capacity. But we
mm,
had a member in our church until she passed, sat in a particular chair, and she never got delivered from that chair. That was her seat. She loved that seat, and you couldn't sit in it. And she never got delivered from that. Well,
mm.
restrict and release. You know, um, you've been doing it for a long time, but it's time for you to mentor someone else to take your
Yeah,
place. And that's a healthy church. Not what people are going to
yeah,
want to
for
hear.
sure.
I can't
Yeah, it is.
imagine telling my sister, you can't direct the choir. You've been doing it for 20 years, but that's what should have happened, you
Mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
and we're at a day and time where, like you said, people are passing. So who are you grooming to be in the position that you're in? And I think that's one of the faults of of our generation, that we're not grooming the next generation to be able to,
mhm.
to be able to take the place. And that's what I was telling you about my pastor, and the beauty of watching him pass the baton and grooming the next pastor for our church, which is his son, but he's grooming for the position, for leadership. So all of the things that have happened have led up to that. So that, hey, when he doesn't he ain't going out the pasture or nothing like that. He's still going to be around, but he doesn't have to be at the day to day or in the day to day actions of the church. He has someone who is younger, who has more energy, and who's able to do a lot more now. And even before that's legacy building to me. That's how you build the legacy of your church. That's how you build the legacy of your family. All of those great things and we've gotten away from that, and it's more, it's important, it's imperative that we do begin to see that, understand it, and begin to implement it, and be show them how it's done, because a lot of them may not even know. you know they may not even know. They don't understand how that's done until they're shown. And your book is a perfect means to be able to show them that, along with coming in and being able to consult with them along that way, to show them the things that they need to do, that aids them in being able to do that. So yeah, that is so important. So the last question before we get you to give us your contact information and everything like that, what's next for you? Do you have any I know you have a ton of books that are out there right now. But I want you to talk about what's next for Miss Creola Thomas.
Okay, well, I have a website that's up and now, and I'll give my contact information in a few minutes. But I want to start producing online courses. Like this book can be a course online that you can actually sit down with your leadership team and go through it
Mhm.
because there's applicable assignments you can do together. So, and I also did a book many years ago, which I'm going to revamp. It's called Being Transformed, and
Mhm.
it's a book for beginners. So I want to kind of bring in some vignettes and some uh, acting out dramatic skits to bring inside it, to pair with that teaching so that you can read the lesson together. We'll have a discussion together. Your church can have a discussion, and then you'll also have assignments to do. That will be online. So I'm having someone like help me put that together and revamp, some of the things that we've been doing. So this book will eventually be a curriculum online where pastors can buy it online and go through it with
Mhm.
their leadership
Mhm.
team, and also Being Transformed. That's going to be a curriculum online. And then I just wrote a book. It's called uh, Why, Lord, Do We Have to Wait So Long? And I want that to be an
Mhm.
online curriculum. And it's just explaining from a biblical perspective why some people wait longer than others for
Yeah,
anything.
and
It could be pregnancy, it could be marriage, it could be a job, it could be for a home, it could be, it's just, the whole waiting ministry, because I do believe it is a ministry.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna put this bug in your ear because you and I gonna talk about it too. Was you talked about you saying having a course online, but you make this a whole curriculum. Just like somebody that goes to seminary. And they get those particular courses. Because I promise you, none of this that you have in this book is in seminary. I promise you. It's not. Now you've been through it, so I know you know. So this can become a curriculum that can be used for pastors outside of the seminary. These are the principles that you need to base your ministry on. And if you allow me to take you and your leadership through this curriculum, here's what you'll gain coming out of that. So I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just saying. You're gonna hear
Yeah.
me
Praise
say
God.
so if you want, if you can, give your contact information, how people can connect with you, to have you come speak, to have you come be, like you said, work your course or your book with them. How can they reach out to you?
Okay, you can always, the quickest way is to text me. I respond to texts really fast, and I have a work number that is a private line. You can call me on that number. It's 1-773-827-4598. And then I also have a website. It's 4567lunchbox .com. You can go to my website and leave a message. I'll respond to that. Or you can email me, 4567lunchbox messages at gmail.com. So those are the three ways you can contact me. Call is the best way. If you text me, I will get back in touch with you. It's easier. I'm always looking at both phones. So yeah. And I'm very personable. There's no, it's me. So you'll get me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I knew this conversation was going to be just one that was going to be insightful, that it was going to be packed with a lot of
Yeah.
wisdom. And even hopefully the watchers, the listeners, they will gain some ideas from this and understanding.
Yes.
Hey, if
Yes.
I'm going to resurrect my church, you need to talk with Creola. You think that your church is in need of of creating that sustainability that she talked about. Reach out to her. That's what the book was for. That's what she's here for as part of. And when I think of your title, I think of Lazarus. I think about how Jesus said, when Jesus came and he said, "Lazarus, come forth." He resurrected him from the tomb, from death. He resurrected him from death. And it's the same way that your church can be resurrected if you use these principles. If you use
Yeah,
the
and let
principles
me
and allow
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
before we sign off, let me thank you dearly for having me on your platform. I'm very grateful and honored. It is a blessing to be able to talk about something that I'm so passionate about and
Yeah, I
constantly
can
learning.
tell.
No one
I
has
love
all
it.
the answers.
I
We
love it.
learn.
I love it.
But thank you so much, Dr. Lever. I do appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And that's what, honestly, that's what the Author Showcase platform is for. It's giving voice to authors like you, that it's more than just about the book. It really is. And I'll tell all of the authors that have been in the showcase, it's more than just talking about your book. We've talked about so many the aspects. We talked a little bit about the book and the things that were in there, but it had to do with what's outside of the book. It's more than just this saying, hey, I have this book, I want you to read and everything like that. This book that you've created is to make people better. It is to make the church better. It's to make pastors better. It's to make leadership better in the church. So that's what this is for. That's what it's meant to do. So y'all, yeah. This is why I do what I do, and why I'm so passionate about talking to people like Creola Thomas and who are making our world better, and that you might not ordinarily hear about her in other spaces of mainstream media and everything else, but you're going to hear about them because of the Author Showcase. You're going to hear about them because of the National Black Unity News and our editor in chief, Brother David Murphy, who is adamant about our voices being out there, making sure that there's a platform for us. Because if not us, then who? If not now, then when? That's the two things that the National Black Unity asks. It asks those things. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? And we have to take that charge with that. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
No problem. Thank you.
With us, not only about the book, but also about your, just about everything that you're doing. Y'all check out the issue, National Black Unity News. That's the cover. And Miss Creola is down here. Let's see if y'all can see that. See that right? I think it's right there. That's her. That's hers right there.
Yeah.
Right there in the Author Showcase, y'all. But this has been a phenomenal, phenomenal episode. Um, yeah, I know. Like I told y'all, this was worth it. I know this is worth it. I know it's past your bedtime. But you'll be okay. You'll be okay in the morning. You'll be able to take this and you can be able to listen to it because y'all know you fell asleep. You nodded off while you watching, so you can go back and watch it again. Cause it'll be back on YouTube and all the other social media platforms that we have as well too. But it's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder, with another episode of the Author Showcase brought to you by the National Black Unity News. We appreciate y'all, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a great, great night, evening, and have a fantastic week. Well, I think the weather's supposed to be really good this week. I don't know what it is up there in Chicago, but this week I think it's supposed to be in the 70s this week. So I'm looking forward to it, getting some of that fresh air, and the weather's starting to break now. So we'll have the really good weather coming, hopefully, and everything like that. So we will talk to y'all soon. Have a great evening. Peace.
Have a blessed day. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
God bless.